Anyways, Dr. Levine, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And Bob Moran, probably one of the smartest guys I know. What was it, your brother, your uncle? Who's the Navy SEAL? Two
Navy SEAL brothers.
Two Navy SEAL brothers. Yeah. So when you guys had like pork chops at home, who got the last pork chop?
They're eminently benign.
They're benign?
Yes.
So you didn't fight over the pork chops?
No, my middle brother kind of, he and I got into fights and stuff. I always lost because he was 2 years older than I am.
Okay. Well, listen, I appreciate it, and we want to get your progressive voice on all this.
Yeah, I'm a liberal you can tolerate.
I'm a liberal you can more than tolerate. A liberal that I respect and consider a friend.
You're a great guy.
But Dr. Levine is coming in, and we're talking about all things having to do with medical insurance, big pharma, genetic drugs, how we're getting ripped off.
Oh, it's terrible.
Dr. Oz, for guys like, well, not you. You probably don't need a testosterone shot, but apparently, I don't know, my wife is here. She's giving me, the thumbs up, like this is something I need. Explain where we're going wrong with all this stuff.
Where can I begin?
Let's start with testosterone. Is it true we're running out and a little boost will help us in the bedroom? You can speak freely. Not a lot of people watch this show.
Well, as you know, I've been writing about the testosterone supplements for years before some of the data began coming out that this stuff actually kills you. There are a lot of physicians.
What a way to go.
Yeah.
I've heard about this too.
But again, it makes you feel better.
Isn't that the Rockefeller way?
It's like cocaine. It makes you feel better.
Okay.
You feel strong, but you die sooner,
Yeah.
But look, if you're a guy and maybe you're divorced and you're trying to get into shape and your libido's a little down and you're watching this commercial, and you see this guy on TV and he says, "Holy cow!"
Yeah.
You feel a little tired. You want to get stronger. Yeah. You fall asleep at night.
Right.
You don't have the vigor. All you have to do is go to your doctor.
Yeah.
And he's going to write you this testosterone, and you're going to feel better.
You know what the clincher is? Permission to speak freely here?
Yes, sure.
When they go, okay, for small children, just turn the set down or something like that. But when they get to the part in the ads, and I think I'm talking about the little blue pill. But when they talk about the little blue, and they go, if an erection lasts for more than 4 hours, seek a doctor. Yeah. And I look over at my wife, and she's like, hello? And I'm like, honey, 4 hours? I don't know, where were you when I was 18? But okay, sorry, I digress.
Well, that's the direct-to-consumer advertising, which you see in only 2 countries in the world. Yeah. The United States and, of all places, New Zealand. The rest of the world caught on and said, man, this stuff is not a good idea.
There's more sheep than women in New Zealand.
It's not a good idea to advertise to the lay public.
Right.
Show some hot-looking guy or actress, and like, hey, I look, I'm doing great on this drug, and then all of a sudden at the end, the little disclaimer, and by the way, it may kill you. Okay.
Right.
So the rest of the world figured this stuff out, that they're actually, convincing the lay public to go to the doctor and say, hey, I want this stuff. It's not a good idea, but the United States...
It's not only not a good idea, well, in the case of testosterone and some of these supplements and stuff like that, but what you talk about, I've made a study of you, by the way. You talk a lot about big pharma and how they're kind of in bed with doctors, giving them all kinds of subsidies and all kinds of money, wine and dine them and everything, and then they push these drugs that cost 10, 20 times as much as a generic, but they're making money. Now, how are we getting ripped off there?
Well, that's all about, again, we spoke about the Sunshine Act. This part of the Affordable Care Act, with the passage of the AC Affordable Care Act, part of that was what's called the Sunshine Act. And the Sunshine Act basically says that no matter what the doctor takes, it's reportable.
Sure.
Okay? So, for example, someone showed up in my office. I didn't even ask the person to come to my office. There's a cup of coffee on my desk. Next thing you know, I go to the internet a few months later, there's a $3.19 tab for a cup of coffee for a product I don't even use.
That's reported.
It's reportable. It's in the database.
So the guy who watched the cup of coffee,
I didn't ask him to come in.
He had to report that, though.
Yeah, he works for Zoll Pacemaker. They make this life vest. I've never used it, by the way. Back to you, Zoll. And you left a cup of coffee for me. I'll never use regardless of the cup of coffee. But here's the kicker.
Yeah.
So basically, all the big physicians were behind this. All the university docs said, this is good. We need a database to show what docs are talking for big pharma. It's like a shame on you. Hey, by the way, I made $50,000 talking for Pfizer last year, and you can find it out in the database.
Yeah.
But here's where there's no leadership, Marty, in healthcare, zero. They figured out when they were making this Sunshine Act, they had an exemption. They exempted CME credits, continuing medical education credits. If Pfizer, or some big pharma sponsors something that's CME, and the doctor makes $50,000, exempt. Now, who gives these CME courses?
Yeah.
The guys that are making the rules up.
Yeah, okay.
You got it? The guys that are making the rules up give these big courses, and that's not in the database.
And oh, by the way, aren't these courses sometimes rolled out in, say, the Bahamas or Tahiti or Steamboat, Colorado, where you can go skiing in the afternoon?
They might be.
Yeah, but you have to, when you start looking at the problem that we have with healthcare, it's deeper than that.
But let me tell you what happens now. So CMS says, you know what, we made a mistake here.
Okay.
They said, we made a mistake. We shouldn't have an exemption. We should report everything, even the CME courses. Now remember, all these, big universities.
CME stands for?
Continuing medical education.
Okay.
So all these, hospitals and societies who are in favor of Sunshine, the brakes go on. Uh-oh. And within a week, AMA and 100 of these societies write letters to Congress and the congressmen and the CMS and everything saying this is a terrible idea because if you do this, we're going to run out of CME courses and it makes no sense. But this is the worst thing in the world. You know what happens?
What?
They reverse their decision.
Really?
They reverse their decision. So now once again. If Evan Levine gets the cup of $3.19 coffee, it's in there.
It's reported.
If the chairman of medicine at the Mayo Clinic or wherever makes $500,000 a year giving CMA courses, it's not in the database.
Yeah. Wow.
And I got one better. Just in case that law passed, there are companies out there one's called Rockpoint. This is the greatest.
Okay.
It's a money launderer, essentially.
Okay.
Let's say pharma says, here's pharma, here's the doctors. If pharma gives the doctors the money, reportable, right?
Right.
Pharma pays Rockpoint. Rockpoint sets up the CME courses.
Right, okay.
And Rockpoint pays the physicians with the Rockpoint check.
I see.
You got it?
Yes.
They got it all figured out.
Well, one of the things that you have to look at, one of the books I recommend people to read is the America's Bitter Pill.
Okay.
Because when you start looking at how healthcare actually works from the medical side, you have interoperability issues. You have systems that don't.
What are
interoperability?
What does that mean?
It means like if I want to send you a file.
Okay.
And one program doesn't allow you to connect.
Right.
Like the largest hospitals in the country use technology that's 50 years old. It's Epic. And the only way that it communicates to the world is through emulators. So if I wanted to talk to you and I'm talking Chinese, I need an emulator to be able to translate that to English so the doc here can understand it.
Okay.
And it's purposefully done because that way you can start to hide data. That when you start looking at how much money Big Pharma makes, we ought to start asking how much money the equipment manufacturers make. Like I have hearing aids. They're $5,500. The tech in these hearing aids is about $50. Texas Instrument makes a DSP chip that can process all the data, and you put firmware into the system, and you do this. This is everywhere. So how much does it cost in China to do an MRI? About $20. Costs how much in this country? $1,500? Same education, same technology, GE, the same environment, but the price points are radically different. And so when you start seeing how the medical event occurs, you don't have the connectivity. For instance, why are records lost? Well, the records are lost because the billing is separate from services rendered. It's like if I buy this, I get this. But if I go to a doctor's office, give me my records. And I mean all my records, not a portal, please, because portals are filtered. I want all my records. This is what I'm due. So I ask the question, what is a medical event? So the medical event occurs, like if I go to this guy, he's going to write a note, and he's going to specify the treatment, and he's going to use a P&D in order to be able to pull out, I'm going to get reimbursed by the insurance companies. Well, that process is separate from the actual treatment of services. So when I want to find my records, if they're separate because of the way the insurance companies worked with IT, they took the operations that docs had done successfully from this beginning of time, and they changed it into a different industry instead of like the car industry or this industry, where services rendered are connected directly to billing. So when you're buying a car, you get an invoice, and the invoice details exactly what you're buying.
Right.
If I go to my doctor and say, I want all my records, for every time that I've shown up, I guarantee I will not get them. And I will not get them in sequence, and I will not get the entire data set.
Is that accurate what you're saying?
I can give him his records.
Oh, you can give
the entire thing?
Absolutely. Let me tell you a problem with this, with the electronic medical records that you love. Sooner or later, there's going to be somebody in China or Russia that's going to break into a hospital computer system. And Marty Heiser, when you had some infection, Marty, at the time, whatever it is,
some sort of scandalous
exactly. The neighbors are going to know. Okay. The problem with EMR. And look, EMR definitely gives transparency. I mean, I can give you all your records. That's not necessarily true. I'm afraid that these big hospitals, the EMR systems, are going to be broken into, and it's going to be your medical records are going to be on the internet. I'm
and
very
the thing
much
of it,
afraid of
what
that.
I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you guys know more, tech side, doctoring side, but with Obamacare, all these records for the doctors to get reimbursed, all these records have to be funneled into the government. So now it's not just, the local doctor who's keeping your records, but it has to be extended to the federal government.
No, it's more toward the insurance. Insurance handles.
Right on that.
See, what's really interesting is insurance's issue is easy.
Right.
The hard stuff is what he does. When he puts together the event and takes care of dealing with a patient. That's an enormous amount of complexity. What the claims deal with is the methodology of payment vis-a-vis the procedures and diagnoses that drive that. The drivers are the diagnosis sets up, hey, I'm coming in for testosterone, I'm having an erection problem.
Yeah.
The procedure is what the doctor specifies, and then does that pass muster with the insurance companies? So the insurance company becomes the payer for services rendered, and so you have that dichotomy of how you specify. So Obamacare, Deloitte Touche did a really good job in Connecticut. They actually did a system that works.
Who, Deloitte Touche?
Deloitte Touche.
Okay.
They did open source. They hired some contractors, put together a really nice system. Vermont's a disaster. Total. And so when the insurance companies talk about the complexity of dealing with this, it's not. It's complex as you think, because the claims are very clearly defined.
Yeah.
It's very specified with the 1500. You fill the thing out, and it's a very well-written document. And from that, it's like a lot of people in this country, they complain about healthcare, but they don't get into the specifics of why it doesn't work. And interoperability is a big deal.
Caller, can you add anything to this?
Well, I have two questions for your guest, because this is absolutely a wonderful show. I had a question for your other guest, but you never...
I know. I saw that. I mean, was it the cat or the lady from Newtown? I mean, we got some live wires here. I can't get a word in edgewise.
I'll ask you another time. Have her back, because I have a question for her. I have two questions for your two present guests. One is, in terms of the creation of the health networks that are forming, and I only see it through my eyes in Connecticut, but they seem to be forming all over. How do you see the forming of the networks as they usurp various sub-levels of doctor practices, orthopedics now, home health care? How do you see those huge conglomerates? Will they take over or somehow be able to absorb some of the pharma situations? And two, right now I'm trying to get my own health records. They won't give them to me.
All right. Let me throw that up. Thanks.
That's a real question.
Okay. What about that? Doctor.
Well, question, let's start with the last one. They're your health records.
Yeah.
You come to my office and you want your health records, you get them. I don't see a problem with that at all. I don't find that. I practice. And anyone comes to my office, they want their records. I have nothing to hide. They get their records.
So when people say that, I mean, maybe your patients, because you're a superior doctor.
No, the records belong to the patient. If the doctor...
That's not the issue.
Okay.
That's not the issue. The records, and the docs want to give the records. That's a non-issue. That has nothing to do with it. It's how the systems are designed. I know a little bit about this.
Okay.
And I know, like for instance, the University of Chicago charges 93 cents per page.
90 cents a page?
Yeah, 93 cents a page.
But in New York State, for example, where I practice, the maximum allowable is 25 cents a
It
page.
should be free.
Well, that's for the lawyers that want the...
Caller, Rod, you have something to
We
add?
don't charge our patients.
Because you're legit.
First of all, thank you for allowing
You're
that to
legit,
go on
and
the
that's
show.
the way it should be
Appreciate
done.
it very much.
Great. No, it's great to have him.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Okay, the question is, now that the Affordable Care Act is working exactly as it should be and doing really well, when are the Republicans going to try to take ownership of it? I mean, after all, it was their health insurance plan.
Yeah, it was Mitt Romney and the boys up in Massachusetts. Excellent question. You know, they say that that success has 1,000 fathers and failure is always an orphan. I'm not sure. Well, what about that from the Obamacare, Affordable Care Act? Is it working spectacularly like this caller says?
We are seeing patients at the hospital that are insured now, hitherto had no insurance. Having said that, I work in a hospital in New York City, and no one was ever being turned away. The ACA Act and the importance of it was to get patients primary care and to stop using hospitals and emergency rooms as their primary care, which is completely inefficient and woefully expensive. You know, an average emergency room visit in these city hospitals, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 every time somebody comes in.
That's unreal.
The bills are unreal. The problem is that we have the ACA Act. People are getting some affordable care, but there's also a lack of education. So even though there's a potential and they have affordable care, people still continue to use that stupid emergency room. Okay, now private enterprise is actually helping out here by opening up these urgent care centers. Okay, and these urgent care centers supplement the care instead of going to an emergency room center.
Yeah, and they can give you stitches.
Right, and the insurers
set
pay
a sprained
them.
ankle.
And
that
the
kind of
insurers are happy because it's a couple $100 for an urgent care visit instead of thousands. But it's, you know, there's a lot of education that needs to be done. It's not only making sure these people have insurance, it's getting them to a primary care physician. I think a lot of the big hospitals do a pretty good job of that, because if the person goes to the emergency room before they leave, they're handed a telephone number and an appointment to call.
All right. That's a balanced analysis of Obamacare.
Not usually what you get on the Marty Heiser show, but that's why we like to rotate some rational people in every once in a while.
And I think it's an intelligent first step in terms of starting to deal with the runaway cost of healthcare. I have a friend of mine who went to Cuba, and his take on the medical was very powerful in terms of, like, every neighborhood has a primary doc.
Okay.
And because they don't have the kind of money that this country has, they promote the wellness. They promote good eating. They promote all of that type of thing. And it's remarkable. The healthcare system in Cuba, believe it or not, is one of the best in the world.
Is that true?
That's what I've heard from. I have a friend of mine.
I'm not moving there. You?
No,
Exactly.
But I mean,
I'm a little
Cuba's in now.
no,
Cuba's
Cuba,
in.
I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about the healthcare environment.
They train a lot of physicians.
And so from that, it was very, very impressive.
But you know what? The ACA hasn't stopped, and it's getting worse. You talk about the importance of primary care doctors, right?
Right.
but the administrators, the CEO, the chief surgeon at the hospital is making 20 or 30 times the amount as this poor primary care doc who's there at 10, 11. I know people that are 10, 11 o'clock at night. You know why? Because they have to do their EMR work. They have to do electronic medical records. They have to document everything. They have to call these horrible insurance companies who won't let their patient get the MRI that they need. And no one wants to go into primary care.
Yeah.
Anyone out there, if you're in medical school, don't go into primary care, okay?
Yeah, they want to go into like plastic surgery, especially orthopedic.
You want to read a really good book that'll really blow your mind?
I do.
Read Utopia of Forms.
Utopia of Forms.
Written
Are
by
there pictures in this book?
Listen to this. This is
large
serious.
print?
This is very serious.
I know, Utopia of Forms.
Sounds
very
written by a guy by the name of David Graeber, and he talks about the tyranny of bureaucracy and how it twists operations, whether it's government, whether it's private enterprise, whether it's medical. It doesn't really matter. And what's happened is what I see what docs are going through. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare because from my perspective as a technology person, as a developer, I see a workflow that's been successful since the beginning of time, and I've seen it just altered beyond recognition. So what happens is I have a very good friend of mine who's a doc that does a lot of work with Mount Sinai. It's a nightmare. She's a primary.
Yeah.
And she's really good at it, and she really loves it.
Yeah.
And she is unloaded, like what you have talked about, is unloaded on it, because the EMR systems are really bad. I know that. I know that first.
Electronic medical records.
Like for instance, you don't have the connectivity issue of how you do the build of a medical event.
Right.
So what happens is, it's like you ask any doc that works in a big hospital, do they like the system they run under? Do they really like the system they run
No one.
under?
And they won't.
No doctor.
All right. Caller, do you have something to
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
you were talking about the urgent care, and this is just a follow-up from my previous question. The urgent care now are being taken over, at least within our region of the Western Connecticut Health Network. They're now absorbing urgent care centers. So all your care is being supplied by a group out to make money, but now they've got all their bases covered. I'd really like to hear their comment.
All right, thank you.
I don't think she's wrong. Look, here, the name of the game is, how can we get the big money patients to our hospital? Okay? Okay. 100 people walk into that urgent care, 90 of them are okay. But one patient needs that cardiac surgery.
Yeah.
That's the big money. How can we get the CT surgery patients, the transplants, the big money into that hospital? There's no question about it. And for whatever reason, partly ACA, partly business, private practice is dead.
Right.
I'll make that statement right now. Private practice is dead.
Right, okay.
Okay, if you know somebody who's wealthy in private practice, I don't think they're doing something too honest out there, okay?
Okay.
You can't be honest and make a lot of money in private practice.
Scripts for Oxycontin.
I don't know what, well, they're doing, they're doing cardiac casts that they don't need to do. Who knows what they're doing? Private practice is dead. Part of that's not so bad because at least some of these physicians are now vetted and there's somebody looking over them. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that, let's say with private practice there was competition.
Right.
And let's say you wanted a stress test. Now, when the private practitioners are there, maybe you can get a stress test or a mammogram in a week. Right. Now, if you got the only guy in town, and they, and they want to be an efficient business, maybe it takes you a month.
Yeah.
Not so good.
It's really, really fascinating. I mean, I think Stephen Brill's book is just awesome.
I've spoken to Stephen.
And he gets into some really seriously hilarious and tragic at the same time.
Okay, we were talking a little bit about doctor review sites. This is kind of like the Angie's List of doctors, and you get reviews and everything. And some of this information, like I'll send emails to Dr. Levine and back when he talks about, never diet again, lose 10 pounds by watching TV and eating bonbons. And he turned me on to this vital.com. And he said this was a review that was found under him. It goes like this. It was put in by Ben Moore. It said, Dr. Levine trained under Dr. Marty Heiser at the School of Medicine and Home Painting and is one of the few physicians who knows how to wallpaper a heart. It's right there. It's on the internet, so you know it's true.
It's there.
And I think that was just sort of a case study or an example of some of these websites where they review doctors and how they can be somewhat bogus.
What I was trying to show you, that these websites are worthless. Crap. Garbage, don't use them.
Okay.
In fact, I found that the more reviews and the better reviews that physicians have,
All right.
they're more likely some duplicitous character gaming the system. I'll give you an example, Marty.
Okay, please.
Besides the one I gave you today,
Yeah.
which I put on myself, and that was with vitals.com. The other one is
Vitals.com?
Health Grades.
Yeah.
These are some reviews from Health Grades on a physician, okay? The most compassionate doctor I ever had to deal with. The best doctor I ever met. Down to earth, caring, and attentive. Great cardiologist. Great doctor, shows great patient comfort. This was by the patient supposedly was named Gene Randazzo, which reminds me of Randazzo's Clam Bar in Brooklyn, but you wouldn't know that, Marty. But anyway, and that doctor was, can I show you, Marty?
Please.
Anthony Machado, the mastermind cardiologist behind murder, drugs, and arson plots.
Is that right?
There it is right now. He got a 5-star rating from Health Grades, 4.5 from Vitals.com. And according to those sites, this guy was great. The fact that he tried to blow up his ex-partner's office, tried to murder him, and was selling oxycodone to patients, not important. But he had great reviews. Great reviews on Health Grades and Vitals. What I'm trying to tell you, worthless crap, garbage. Don't go there. They make a lot of money through traffic. If you go to the sites, there's a heck of a lot of advertisements. Yeah. And that's where they're making the money.
It's sort of like Scientology.
Exactly.
It's along like they interviewed one guy who's a former Scientologist.
Yeah.
And the guy's interviewing him says, what was the main thrust of, what was the characteristic of Scientology? He used one word, rapacious.
Rapacious.
Yeah.
Rapacious.
Hold on, I got to Google
Sort of
that.
like the long line of
I was going to
this.
use rapacious for you.
Rapacious.
Rapacious, that's a favorite. Meretricious, that's another
Yeah,
good one.
right.
Meretricious.
It's a legalistic term, like, polysyllabic, but rapacious. Instead of greedy, rapacious sounds better.
Oh, there he is.
So you're saying, so we can't trust these reviews. But there's all kinds of charlatans out there. Give me 30 seconds on your friend Dr. Oz. I saw him on the news. He's going to get kicked out of Colombia now.
Look, I've never met Dr. Oz. I've spoken to Dr. Oz on the phone. I've written to Dr. Oz over the years, and I said this to you before. Dr. Oz is the classic Anakin Skywalker. He went to the dark side. Okay, he's selling crap. He is selling crap. Now, let me say something about Colombia, though. Colombia went along with this stuff.
Yeah.
This guy was a great advertiser for Colombia.
Yeah.
It's all about, what is it all about, Marty?
The money.
The money. Hey, I saw Dr. Oz. I want to have surgery at Columbia. Yeah. Columbia is a great institution, don't get me wrong. Yeah. Dr. Oz was a great surgeon. But Dr. Oz went to the dark side, and he's selling crap on TV.
How can people get in touch with you? Just Google Dr. Levine?
You can Google me. You can email me at vanlev@aol.com, or you'll find me on the web.
Go Dr. Levine, Ridgefield, Connecticut. It'll definitely come up. If you need heart surgery, I got him on speed dial just in case. What was the Red Fox? This is it, honey. I'm coming home. Get Dr. Levine on the phone.
I'll get you a 5-star cardiologist if you want to. Anthony Machado. And
here's some Oxycontin. Take 12 of these. And
maybe you don't like your house.
Take 10
you want your house firebombed. We can take care of it.
And Bob Moran, last thoughts. 10 seconds or less.
Okay. I like working with him, Marty. You're right.
Well, thanks so much for coming in. I want to appreciate my guests. First of all, Buddha Cat and his Scrabble understanding of Benghazi and how that rolled out from there. Angela Johnson, the Newtown Action Alliance. They're not going to take your guns. They understand it's more subtle than that. And appreciate them coming in, and Dr. Levine and Bob Moran. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week when I'm not really sure what's going to happen, but I got a week to think about it. Good night, and we'll see you later. Bye.